Charles Payne from Fox News, Fox Business, has a book called Unbreakable Investor, and it's Investing 101. He was a former stockbroker, so that is where his heart remains, and his wallet as well. So you get some advice, but all different types of investing is in this book as well. We just talked about the Japanese CEO of this bank, SoftBank, said he's going to spend $100 billion, invest $100 billion in America. That's amazing. Maybe make 100,000 new jobs. Insane. But what a sign that things are going to be moving in the right direction here economically. I believe it. Unbreakable Investor by Charles Payne gives some good wisdom, foundational wisdom on how to take advantage of the golden era that we are now on the cusp of. The book is $29.95. They'll give it to you for free. They will give it to you for free. I'm not giving it to you for free. They're doing it. I wish I could take credit for being this generous, but they're giving it to you for free. Just text the word Mike to the number 505-505, and they'll send it your way. Text the word Mike to the number 505-505.
In the words of Andrew Breitbart, walk toward the fire. Don't worry about what they call you. You're listening to Breitbart News Daily with your host, Mike Slater.
If Congress people had trading cards, I would not trade my Chip Roy rookie card for anything. One of our favorite congressmen. Congressman, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good to talk to you. Thank you. We got a ton to do and not a lot of time to do it. Not just this interview. I just mean America. So I'm glad that you are putting healthcare in near the top of the to-do list because it's the most regulated part of our economy, I would argue, and therefore the most screwed up. Where is Congress's head at right now with healthcare?
Well, it's a great question, and thanks for it. And Merry Christmas to all the listeners out there. We do have a lot to do, and it's a laundry list of things that are important to undo the damage of the Biden administration, from border security to spending to the abuse of citizens through the FBI, et cetera. But probably none is more important, at least certainly, it's as important as health care. And people kind of have moved beyond, for some understandable reasons, frankly, just because they're tired of talking about it and it's pretty baked in, have moved beyond Obamacare and just kind of focusing on Obamacare repeal or proponents of Obamacare. Because really what we have now, because Obamacare has been fully kind of baked into our system, is just a broken healthcare system. And you put it well, an overregulated, government-regulated insurance company and pharma and hospital-run healthcare system that really doesn't even provide healthcare, right? It's actually sort of it's a system that is essentially telling you what you can and can't do, but it actually limits your ability to go get care because patients aren't empowered, doctors aren't empowered, but rather these bureaucrats, government and corporate bureaucrats, are empowered. So you ask, where's Congress's head? Where's the head of folks in town? Frankly, not very focused on what you and I might call transformational change, which means you've got to fundamentally alter the system and the landscape to, as I said, empower patients with money in the health savings accounts and to transform it so that I have to go shop like any other service that we deal with in our country for care. A good example, the Surgery Center of Oklahoma. Right? You go get a knee replacement there, and, it's something like, I'm going to call it $10,000. It depends on what knee and how much the extent of the surgery is. That same surgery is something like $50,000 when you go look at what's going on under the insurance system. Mm-hmm. That's what has to change. But the Surgery Center of Oklahoma is cash-based, right? You come in and you pay for it. We've got to break the back of the current model. And Congress hasn't been willing to do that so far. We end up doing Band-Aids. Last point, for example, we're going to say we're doing major health care reform in a 1,500-page end-of-year government spending bill in the CR by going after PBMs. Now, PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, are a problem. They need to be dealt with. But this is a complex bill that I think is just going to kind of shift around who's making money, pharma or PBMs or insurance companies. I don't think it's going to be transformative. But Republicans will go around saying they've solved a big problem, when in fact I think they've only put a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound.
Totally. I'm so glad you mentioned the Surgery Center of Oklahoma. I first talked to them like 10 years ago, and I'm thrilled that they're thriving still. We're going to reach out to them and talk to them. They're great. And I love what you said about the health savings account, stuff like that. Anything that empowers people. Because right now, every healthcare bill, Obamacare, there's no empowering of people and choices. But are the American people ready for this? Have we been so desensitized and demoralized when it comes to healthcare that like our knee jerk is like, well, we just need to be more like Canada. It's easy that way. Are we ready for what you and I are talking about?
Well, I think that's a really good question. I think if fully informed about what they would have and be able to do if they had control of their care, I think people would be actually ready for that kind of flexibility. Because right now, if you're an average American, if you're a listener to this program, if you want to go get your oil changed, you can go to probably 40 places somewhere within 10, 20 miles of your house. If you want to go get a doctor, how many can you go to? And the issue is you have to call some kid or some person not a kid, but some person on a phone line in like Topeka, Kansas, or in India, who's answering your insurance phone number, and they tell you who's quote in your network and who you can go to and what your deductible is. The average family of four it has to spend through themselves or their employer something like $25,000 a year just to have insurance, to have a really high deductible, to then still have to spend for out of pocket for most things that happen to them. And most people realize that it's a sham, but they have to kind of think through it, and they don't really realize it until they have to pay the bills. And then they go, well, wait a minute, what the hell? What was I paying insurance for? And if you go look at the price of everything, people say, well, families can't afford to live. One of the biggest reasons is healthcare. They end up spending a lot out of pocket, even though they're spending so much on insurance. The way to break that is to get people paying out of pocket to direct primary care physicians. So I just pay for the service out of a tax-advantaged health savings account. The way to break the insurance model is to decouple your ability to save money from having to have a certain kind of plan that's highly regulated, and instead be able to go to a less regulated plan that's a truly catastrophic insurance plan. Most people get how things work. They just want to have money over here that they can save for things like this, and then have insurance if crap hits the fan. Look, I'm a cancer survivor. Crap hit the fan for me. But now, under Obamacare, I would be restricted, and members of Congress are on Obamacare, by the way. If you're a member of Congress and you're on the Obamacare plan that's provided to us, you can't go to MD Anderson. I went to MD Anderson when I had cancer 12 years ago. I would be prohibited now under Obamacare from going to MD Anderson because it's not on their plan. Think about that. I had a constituent who had that happen. She was on Obamacare. She couldn't go to MD Anderson, the best cancer hospital in the world, or certainly one of the 2 or 3. And she couldn't go because Obamacare didn't have it. That's wrong.
It's wrong, and it makes no sense. It's just illogical. Like I can't even really get to the wrong part, like the morality of it, until I get past like the lack of common sense of it. It's so ridiculous. Who's making money in the current system right now?
Well, I mean, putting aside the morass of government problems between Medicare, Medicaid, and all of the programs and the Veterans Administration and CHIP and everything else, insurance companies have been making astronomical sums of money since Obamacare. Pharma has been making tons of money. And then increasingly monopolistic hospital corporations that have been buying up regional hospitals are making tons of money. Meanwhile, all of our premiums are skyrocketing. The number of administrators that are being hired vastly outpaces the number of doctors and the number of nurses that are in the field. And so we're paying for all of that. And at the end of the day, our care quality is decreasing. Our options are decreasing. The number of doctors that we even have in the market per capita is decreasing. And we've upended the system such that it's hard to compete. Like in a normal market, people would see that system and say,
Yes.
ooh, I'm going to innovate and break it. But it is so highly regulated from Washington. It's hard for a smart person like an Elon Musk of healthcare to come in and truly dismantle and break the system. And that's where I think we need disruption. The way to get disruption is to kind of break down the regulatory structure and to empower individuals with their own money in a tax advantage way instead of empowering corporations and insurance companies as the current model is structured.
Yes, that's the mindset. Okay. I'm going to say, we only got like 3 minutes. I want to save the more health systemic questions for the Surgery Center of Oklahoma guys. I want to ask you more Congress specific questions. So I asked you if the American people are ready for all this. What's holding Congress up from thinking big like Chip Roy, as opposed to, as you wrote on Twitter, just moving the deck chairs in the Titanic? What's the holdup here?
Well, members of Congress, first of all, we legislate by crisis. So again, take right now. I'm going to be given a 1,500-page bill. In it is a significant amount of health care reform. Basically, it's extensions of either bad or mediocre policy. And in order to pay for that, we're going to go basically have fake pay-fors that are created, and one of which is through this PBM reform that I talked about. And then we're going to say, oh, my God, we solved this. We cut out the middleman with PBMs. And I'm going to go, well, what you did is just shifted around who's going to pay for the drugs. It might drive some prices down a little bit on the margins, but it's not going to transform healthcare. But Republicans will say that it will. Meanwhile, and this is what Republicans do. We get given the keys to the kingdom and say, okay, you're in charge. And then we nibble around the edges, and then we want to pat ourselves back on reform. When Democrats come in, they do something like pass ObamaCare 15 years ago. It's transformative. And that's one of the things I'm going to keep kind of pushing on, is that we can't hide behind nibbling around the edges, like marginal changes that might have some mediocre positive impact with other side impacts that aren't great, and then go try to claim victory. Yep. The American people go, what do you mean victory? My premium is still high. I still have to pay a lot for drugs. Even if it goes down a little, it's still a lot. And, one of my staffers yesterday said, we're talking about like $1 billion in savings in a $2.3 trillion broken system.
Yeah.
And that's what Republicans like to go around and throw a parade over.
Yeah, that's right. All right, well, I got 1 minute. Moving away from healthcare, perhaps we'll generalize out a bit. You and I realize this is more of a, or I would say this is like a once in a lifetime moment. Do you see other big changes happening in Congress, or are they going to blow it?
Some of us are going to have to fight like hell to constrain the impulse of Republicans to want to go, quote, negotiate and cut the deal that is the easiest path. And so we're going to have some moments over the next 6 months where there's some tense moments that some of us are going to have to kind of rattle to force Republicans to the table. The answer is we have to, though, because we can't lose this moment. We have to secure the border. We have to cut spending. We have to reform health care. We have to get our military back. We have to kill the bureaucratic and administrative state. We have to. Our future depends on it. Freedom depends on it. So these half measures, these half loaves, right, these moderate proposals, those aren't what we need right now. We need transformative change. And we've only got about a year or two to get it done under the Trump administration and under this Congress.
Yeah, no time to wait. And you play a pivotal role in this. We'll pray for you and encourage best you can. Congressman Chip Roy from, do you say you're north of San Antonio or west of Austin? How do you describe your district?
Both. between Austin and San Antonio, and then all out west through God's. I was
just going to say, God's country right there. Beautiful. Congressman, appreciate it. Merry Christmas.
God bless. Merry Christmas.
Keep up the great work. Okay, we need more Chip Roys. where I get every congressman we've talked to, I've been like, are you guys really going to do this? And they're all like, yeah. I talked to Chip. He's like, they're not. Unless we really push them to. And we will. Coming next, we'll talk to the congressman who's all about impoundment. Talk about that next. Spread the word.